Hello and welcome to Backyard Food Guide. What I'd like to do today is to talk about things to consider when planning for a fall and winter crop in your garden. And it is mid-June right now and it is time to do the planning. Just as if we want to start plants in the spring from seed, it's necessary to start planting in February, March. So if I wait until the fall, if I wait till September, it'll be too late to start the seeds. So that's why it's important to think about what we want to grow in the fall. This is the best time to plan, and one of the first things that we need to do in the planning is to figure out when the first frost date will be for your area. So I'm in zone 8-9, and in my area the first frost date tends to be end of October to mid-November, and in some years even a little bit later. So that means this gives me quite a bit of time to still start some of the plants from seed in order to be able to harvest before mid-November. Now, some areas of the country will have their first frost date quite a bit earlier than that. So in some places, September. So that means then that you really have to plan for very cold, hardy vegetables that could survive, or to even consider overwintering. So it's important to know the difference between winter gardening and overwintering. Winter gardening is when the vegetables should be full size before frost starts in November. And often that means that it will grow very slowly once frost begins, and you're able to do some of the harvesting throughout the winter and potentially even in the spring. So some winter vegetables will actually lie dormant in the ground, ready to be dug up for winter eating. Others will continue to grow especially if given some protection. So it's important to know what different varieties of plants will need during the winter. Overwintering is different from winter gardening. These plants want to enter winter as teenagers, so fairly small seedlings, waiting for the lengthening days of spring to finish growing. And certain varieties like onions, garlic, cauliflower, and broccoli need this extra season to fully develop. So overwintered vegetables don't require a great deal of protection from the elements. In early spring, their growth rates will speed up and they are ready to harvest around the time most spring crops are going in. So it's kind of nice to be able to get a harvest from your garden early in the spring. So for this fall winter season, my plan is to continue growing beets. Beets are a wonderfully nutritious vegetable, and we also love using the beet greens, especially in smoothies or in stir fries. They are a beautiful, sweet, and healthy green to eat. And the variety that I'm going to choose this year would be the Merlin. This is a hybrid, relatively disease-resistant variety, and best of all, you're getting really large leafy greens from this particular beet. So I think that'll do well for our family in the fall. Also for carrots, we're going to continue to sow all summer in successive sowing until mid-September. And later on in the summer, the variety I'm going to choose is the Carota Nova. This is a deep reddish orange carrot with tender and sweet taste. It takes about 68 to 110 days to reach maturity. Collards is also a really wonderful green to grow all winter. You can actually direct sow it all the way until the end of September. The variety that I'm going to choose is Champion. This is a cold, hardy member of the collard family. It's nutritious and it does resist bolting in warm weather. So if you end up with a very warm September and even early October, the collards can still do really well. And it's a great vegetable because you can actually harvest it all winter, and it is known as a 4-season gardening standby. So being able to grow something all year is a real bonus. We're also going to put in kale, and I'm going to use the Red Russian seeds that I'll be harvesting. So I'll be doing a video on how to harvest kale seeds. This was a wonderful overwintered kale that we had put in. It has gray-green leaves and a purple stem. It was super disease resistant and relatively few bugs. And kale is an excellent winter vegetable to grow, also because it's actually very difficult to grow kale well in the summer. It tends to bolt, and especially the curly kale in our area tends to be very, very buggy. So the Red Russian is a great variety for winter growing. I'm also going to continue to sow butter crunch lettuce. I have a lot of seeds left over, and I'm going to keep starting them every 2 weeks until the end of August, beginning of September. Lettuce tends not to like it too hot or too cold. If you're planning to grow lettuce in the summer, I actually have a video with tips on how to do that. It can be tricky because a blast of heat could lead to very bitter leaves or lettuce that will bolt prematurely. So the butter crunch lettuce is going to work well, I think, into the fall. But lettuce also tends not to like it too hot or too cold. So it's one of those things where you don't want to start too late because likely it's not going to go too far in past the fall stage. Also, romaine lettuce will do very well here in the fall, and in fact, if you give it just a little bit of protection, a cover of some kind, romaine will actually grow quite far into winter. Spinach is another plant that I'm planning to continue to sow, and what you want to do is direct sow that until about mid-August, or you can start indoors in August and then transplant under row covers in November and October. So give that a try and see how it goes. Spinach can be a little more difficult, but certainly I think spinach is better in the fall and winter when it'll be sweeter, whereas in the summer it can be a very tricky one to grow as well. I think what's very interesting about winter gardening is that the crops can live for such a long time in the garden beds after maturity. So what you're going to find is that in the summer, once a plant has become mature, it will rot relatively quickly if you don't harvest it at the right time. Whereas the winter is a different story. And in fact, our garden beds act like a giant refrigerator. So it allows us to keep the crops a lot longer in the garden during that time. So I hope you got some useful tips on winter gardening in this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.